You said, and I quote, "Fatherhood isn't about having kids. It's about the man you become because of your kids."
Mm,
What kind of man were you before you had your son, and what kind of man have you become?
great question. Very selfish. I knew I was selfish though. That's part of, I did. I did.
Which makes it better.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
knew.
I feel like it's better, right? I feel like if you're a selfish person and you admit you're selfish and you know you're selfish, I feel like it's a little bit better than not being, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, no, I was aware. I was aware. I really early I was aware. In fact, I remember even telling girls I was dating early on, "Hey, I'm a very selfish guy," and then I was something I've been lucky and blessed is I'm very self aware. And I knew because of what I had come from that when I did start to have things and the ability to buy stuff for my like boy I was very into that. I was and making up for a lot of time probably. And so most of my 20s very selfish, even in a little bit into my 30s, still really selfish. But I did start to feel myself starting to come out of that. Like I've kind of realized that's a never-ending hole,
Mm.
and that I'm beyond a lot of these insecurities of my childhood. I'm very grateful for what I grew up in, and so my mindset started to shift. And I think I really started to feel myself starting to become the man that was probably ready to be a father, you know. And I feel very lucky and blessed that I did have the self-awareness to know that I wasn't ready to be a dad in my 20s. I would not have been the father I am today in my 20s purely because I've been so selfish. I would have let a lot of my insecurities around money bleed into my own son. I 100% would have been the 25-year-old dad who's making decent money, has a son. His son would have been wearing the Jordans and Gucci shirt and like all the things, because that was where I was at in my life in my 20s. I was still, like I said, showing up to places and telling people about my bankroll,
Mm.
and what a great way to do it through my child, so people could. But what a horrible
Yeah.
idea.
Yep.
And I know that I would have probably done something like that, you know. I'm definitely not that dad right now, for sure. In fact, Katrina's like, you know, you can buy him a pair of shoes. He needs them. You know, so like, no, he's fine. Those ones are good. So, wait till his toes are pushing out, then we'll get new ones. So I'm totally the opposite with my son now than what I would have been in my 20s. So I was very selfish. And I knew I was, but I didn't realize to what an extent until I had a kid. And I also didn't realize that I had never loved anything more than myself yet.
Mm.
Um, if you would have asked me, I would have said, I love my mom. I love my sister. I love my brother. I love my wife. I love a lot of things. I love my job. I love a lot of things. I would say that if you would have asked me that, but I didn't love any of them more than I love myself, for sure. And I didn't realize that until I had Max. Once I had my son, I had this feeling of, oh shit, this is what it's like to actually love something more than myself. Like I mean, it gets me emotional always thinking about it. Like it's so powerful that I look through that lens in everything that I do. It doesn't matter what the decision is. I'm getting ready to buy something new for myself. I think, how's my son going to perceive that? I'm getting ready to go do something with somebody, and I go, well, you know, what if my son knew I was about to go do that? Or I'm
Mm-hmm.
about to say something to somebody, and I'm like, if my son heard that and I had to explain why I did that or said that, how would I explain that to him? Man, my whole life, I view, how do I talk to my wife, right? Like I think about the way I communicate to her through his eyes. Like
Mm.
he's going to see the way I treat his mother. That's how he's probably going to treat women. So even if she frustrated me with something she said, like I always look through that lens. That has completely altered the man I am. I didn't have that capacity before I had a son, and having a son now makes me actually, and gives me a real purpose. I think before I would have had some superficial purpose. I would
Mm-hmm.
have talked about legacy or something, like carrying on or taking care of my great grandkids, or I don't know, something like that. But no, my purpose is to give to this kid everything I possibly can as far as my knowledge, and pass that down so he can take that further on. And so that is all I think about as a dad now. And I did not know that. And I see the man it forces me to become by being a parent. And I'm so grateful. Like I was almost not a dad. Like my mid 30s, and early 30s, if you would have asked me, I would have said like, I might have kids. I always said I wanted to, but I had very high standards for myself on where I wanted to be financially before I brought kids in. And that's due to a lot of my insecurities, right? Like due to my not having, I was like, I need to be at a place where my wife doesn't have to work. We can have a nanny. Like we can go to the private school. We can do all the things. And so I'm not bringing a kid in the world until I can do all those things. So I was very driven to do that. I realize now it would have been okay. You know, I would have been okay, especially with the wife and partner I have. We would have solved it even if we didn't have those things. But I'm grateful that I did it that way. I'm glad that I waited until we were at a place where, you know, we were able to make all those decisions. But yeah, fatherhood has shaped me into a whole different person for sure.
You were talking about being selfish and knowing you were selfish. It brings up the discussion of good or bad, right? And I feel like many people look at selfish as it's inherently bad. But I like most things, I think there's a spectrum to it. And for example, I would imagine, I'll tell my daughters this, and I would imagine you tell your son, at a certain point in your life, I think it's good to be selfish.
Yes.
Like when you're in your late teens, early 20s, even like 30s, like be selfish. Focus on you. Build yourself. Don't let anyone take away from you. Like there's a difference between being selfish and being rude, being selfish and just lacking empathy for other people. But I actually think that, and maybe I'm wrong, maybe in the future I'll disagree with myself on this, but I think being selfish when you're young is one of the best things you can do so you can be selfless as you get older.
I don't only strongly agree with that. There's a viral clip of me answering a 20-year-old kid who called into our show asking that exact question.
Oh, really?
He asked me, he says, what would you go back? He's 20 and he's asking us into health and fitness. He goes, what would you tell a 20-year-old version of yourself? And I told him, I said, this is the time you're selfish. You don't have a wife. You don't have a kid. You don't have anybody depending on you. You should be obsessed with growing every day. Reading, learning, becoming a better man, getting in better shape, learning everything you can, saving everything you can. Like this, that's all selfish. This is the time to do that. Because when you get older and you have a wife and you have a kid, that completely changes. And it's a lot harder to make those, like when you're 20 and you can be selfish. And I did stuff like this. Like I could just transfer jobs and go because there's more money that way. And it's like, I'm not uprooting a kid from school. I'm not making my wife leave her town or whatever that is that she's rooted in. Like, and I could just make that decision solely based off of this is going to serve me to move here and go do that. I mean, that's what I uprooted myself from my town to the other town and look how well it served me. I was selfish. That was a selfish decision. And so absolutely, I believe when you are young, it's very serving to do that. And it's, and to build you, right? With the intent of building the better you, because then the better you can then better serve others as into later adulthood. So yeah, no, I strongly agree with that.